The German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius held a speech at the Munich Security Conference in which he fiercely criticized the statements made by the Vice President of the United States, JD Vance, and he's now joining us here in Munich. Boris Pistorius, thank you very much. You held a completely different speech than the one that you'd intended to hold. You wrote it.
At least the first part.
So you criticized JD Vance, essentially saying that he was painting a distorted picture of democracy, and you called it unacceptable. Aren't you worried that you're making life more difficult for Europe, which will now have to talk to the Trump administration, including JD Vance?
I mean, Vice President Vance emphasized the relevance of democracy and the freedom of opinion. And I reacted to his opinion with my opinion, especially because I'm convinced, deeply convinced as a Democrat in Germany and Europe, that our democracies are even more stable and good as ever before. Everybody in Germany and in Europe is able and is allowed to say his opinion wherever and whenever he wants. But it's about his opinion about democracies. And I said, no, this is not acceptable to accuse us for not being real Democrats. And I had to make that clear as a representative of a German government here in Munich.
And are we seeing the true Zeitenwende here at this Munich Security Conference? We've got the US and the Europeans fighting on the open stage. So isn't this the seismic shift?
I think we should calm and cool a little bit down. I mean, this was a controversy on the open stage, which I didn't start. And I answered in a polite way, I think, but clear. And this is what our friends in the United States of America understand pretty well. And this is a proof and the best symbol for democracy all over the world, that we can say each other our opinion. And I'm not afraid that the relationship between the US and Europe and Germany will take any damage out of that, because it is too strong for that.
And also lots of speakers have said that there are things where the US and Europe don't differ that much, so that there are points that people could sit down and talk about together. But is something going to come out of Munich? Isn't this the opportunity that you would need to seize to not just describe the problem, but actually act?
Well, we are on the same page, to be frank. I always admitted during my being in office in January 23 that Europe and Germany, that we have to do more, that we have to contribute more for our own security, especially with regard to the shift of focus of the United States, which is to be expected and announced now to the Indo-Pacific. So that's quite clear that we have to do more. There's no discussion about that. What I suggested yesterday in Brussels is to work together on a joint roadmap to make it possible to orchestrate that burden shifting for the years to come, by avoiding at the same time critical capability gaps in meanwhile. Because this is a challenge we have to face. It's quite clear the US will do less in the years to come, and we have to do more.
This roadmap, why didn't the Americans propose it? If they say that they are going to do less, surely they have to inform their allies just what they're going to do less, when, by.
We are all professionals, and we met yesterday, the day before yesterday, the first time in Brussels. We made acquaintance of each other, Pete Hegseth and me and others. And of course we had the first place to discuss the main issues, and then we came to that point, and then I made that proposal. It could have come from Pete Hegseth too. It doesn't matter.
And the Europeans are very clear that they do want to sit at that negotiating table. What can Germany bring to that table?
It is not about what can we bring to the table as Germany. It's about the role of Europeans in those negotiations. I think one thing should be quite clear. If we have a peace in Ukraine, it has to be guaranteed. It has to be security guarantees. Sorry, and somebody has to achieve them to guarantee those guarantees. And the US expect us to do that, at least in a central role. Fine so far, but to do that, we need to be involved in the negotiations about the peace we are expected to ensure afterwards. So that is quite clear. Therefore, we have to talk with the Americans and with others in which kind and which structure we can take part. It doesn't mean 27 member states at the negotiating table. This is unrealistic, but any other way can be imaginable too.
Is NATO membership off the table for you, for Ukraine?
Well, as I already said earlier, I consider it as a mistake to take it off the table before starting the negotiations, as well as the issue of territory questions. But anyway, Donald Trump decided to take it off the table, and now we have to see how the negotiations, when they finally will start, if they didn't start yet, will go with regard to that topic or not.
And in the meantime, you're continuing supporting Ukraine in its attempts to defend itself against Russian aggression. Parts of the German government promised Ukraine another 3 billion euros in aid, including yourself. When is Ukraine going to get that money?
Well, nobody promised anything. We planned a 3 billion package, for which we didn't find a proper financing way, because we couldn't find a conclusion between the parties. I think after the election, 23rd of February, we will find a solution for the one way to solve it for the other.
Yeah, that's true. You always said you were hopeful that Ukraine would get that money, but of course we're also facing elections here in Germany. Are you going to stay on as Defense Minister?
This decision will be up to the voters on Sunday next week, and afterwards we talk about coalitions, content of the coalition and personnel.
Would you like to?
Everybody knows that I love my job, but still it's up to the voters.
Boris Pistorius, thank you very much.